This is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today I have another exciting episode for him here in Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, that's where the Cleveland 351 Ford motor engine was made. I had a friend that had a Mustang with a Cleveland 351. Anyways, this is the first time I've been in Cleveland. I've been having a great time here. And what I'm here today to show you guys is actually a really cool example of urban agriculture. It's awesome. We're here at the Rid All Green Partnership. And what they're doing here, as you can see behind me, they got some hoop houses and some greenhouses growing food here in the city of Cleveland. What they're doing here is growing fresh food for people, but more importantly, they're educating people how to grow their own food to make things more sustainable and just create communities in general. So what I'm here today to do for you guys is actually to show you exactly what they're doing, some of the cool things they got growing on. I mean, it's totally amazing. They got aquaponics, they got composting, they got vermiculture, and so many cool things. One of the things you'll notice is that they have a whole bunch of greenhouses here, and that's because it snows during the winter here in Cleveland. Pretty soon they're going to have about 3 feet of snow on the ground, but yes, you can grow in the snow even in the wintertime if you have greenhouses and hoop houses. They're only heating 2 of them with the external heat sources, and the other ones they're not using any external heat sources. So I'm going to show you guys how exactly to do it so that you can grow in the winter too, just like they are here. So let's come on and tour and show you guys what's growing on. So instead of saving the best for last, I'm going to show you guys the best first. You know, they have a lot of different structures here, and I'm going to show you guys those for sure. But I'm going to show you guys actually this one first. This is where the aquaculture is going on, and they got a lot of cool stuff growing in this first greenhouse, which is probably the one they put up first and been developing the longest. This one is basically framed out in 2x4s and just standard dual pane greenhouse panels. So let's go ahead and inside and show you guys what it looks like. So they have a little area here where you could sit down, and it has a nice fragrance inside here. And this fragrance is really cool. It smells like actually oranges, and that's because there's this orange tree. And every tree, just like every person, has a story. So the story of this tree actually came to the Rid All Partnership here because of a lady who had cancer, and this is an interesting story. The lady who was on her way to the Cleveland Clinic to get treated for the cancer bought a little baby tree like 28 years ago, and she took care of it, and because she survived the cancer, and she took care of it for all these years, and finally she passed away. So she gave this to the Rid All Partnership here, and now it's growing here, and it wasn't doing so well. But check it out. Now it actually has flowers on it. It'll soon be fruiting, and it smells amazing. And one of the best things to learn about here is that the most valuable things here is actually the soil, because they added the soil and the tree took off so good. The most important thing here and the most valuable thing here is the soil, not the greenhouse structure, not any of the equipment here. But you got to work and value your soil. You got to build your soil so that it will feed you, and more importantly, your plants. So I want you guys to focus on your soil and building your soil. Instead of just fertilizing and adding fertilizers, we want to build the soil so the plants can absorb all the nutrition from the soil by using principles of the food soil web. So besides the orange tree, there's another big thing that's apparent when you walk in here. It's how warm it is inside here, and also how humid it is inside here. They have a small demonstration garden over here, and some things planted in the ground, such as cherry tomatoes. They have some aloe vera, and also this other cool plant. Actually, this one actually is called the moringa tree. And the moringa tree is one of the most nutritionally dense foods on the whole planet. This one is planted in the ground, and I want you guys to pay attention to the height on this one, because in a minute we're going to show you guys one that's planted not in the ground and growing under aquaponics, and how much better it did. It's completely amazing. So aside from that, along the top here, they don't waste too much space here. They're growing food in containers. This happens to be some kale and maybe broccoli microgreens. This is very easy to do even if you don't have space like a big yard. Just get a pot and grow some microgreens in your window. And these will be ready to harvest. You could cut them, and generally they'll come again depending on the soil. Over in this area here, they have more microgreens growing just in larger containers, larger pots, and these are they got some chickweed growing in here and some collard greens and whatnot. This one actually has some heirloom lettuces growing. Along the top, they just got these standard pots, man, and this is just a whole bunch of microgreens lettuce. And you could easily grow the microgreen lettuce. Now, something like the lettuce or some of the kale and whatnot microgreens, they may take a little bit longer to grow, but if you want a fast turnaround, I highly encourage you guys to grow something like sunflower sprouts. I do have a really good episode on growing some sunflower greens, and they happen actually really fast. Maybe within 10 to 14 days, you'll have a whole crop of sunflower greens to eat. This is especially important to green your diet in the winter time. Next thing we're going to look at actually is another key to how everything works here, and it's these guys. You might be thinking, hey John, that's just some big blue totes, man, with some wood chips in there. Well, you know, if you thought that, you'd be thinking wrong, because this is one of the main keys to how everything works here. This is actually their vermiculture, where they're basically using worms to digest the wood chips and the food scraps in there. And when they do that, the worms basically make a worm poop, and that worm poop is called the castings, and the castings is one of the important soil ingredients that they use to grow some of the best plants here in Ohio. So let's check out this worm bin. Check it out. You're gonna go inside here and scoop it up. And check it out. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there's all these little baby little worms. And these are the worms, the composters that break down the soil and turn it into rich worm castings. What happens is they put the wood chips and the food scraps in there, and I got the special hint. If you want to supercharge and increase your worm population, add some watermelon rind. I mean, I've heard that watermelon is like the human Viagra, so like if you're having problems getting it up, you know what I'm saying, guys? That'll help you out, but it also supercharges the worm production. The worms go crazy for it and start multiplying like crazy when you put watermelon rind in with your worms. Anyways, what they do here is, once they got a lot of this, about once a month, they scoop all this stuff out, and then they go and put it over this screen here. They put it over this screen, and then they basically shake it out, and what they get on the other side is this stuff right here. And this is the black gold. There's no substitute, in my opinion, for worm castings in your garden. You always want to use some worm castings, and it's not necessarily about, you know, the castings, what's in here, but what it's about, in my opinion, the worm castings, why they're so valuable, is the biologics in the soil. You could make like a compost tea with this stuff and spray it all over your garden. You could use it foliarly, which means the leaves could absorb it, or you could actually mix them in with your soil, because it's having an active soil, the beneficial bacteria, fungi, and protozoa in the soil that actually helps build the soil and bring the nutrients into the plants. So this is a very important resource they're doing here in this greenhouse to produce the worm castings locally and make it available to gardeners in just a little, you know, bag like this. And you know, worm castings can be very difficult to find depending on where you live. So I'm glad that they have these available, and this is definitely good shit, if you know what I mean. Next, the moment you've been waiting for is the aquaponics setup. Many people are wanting to get into aquaponics because they think it's really cool, and yes, it's definitely really cool, and it looks like they got the system dialed in here pretty good. But you know, it's not without learning curve. So I was talking to them here, and yes, they had some challenges with it. And you know, one of the things I like to teach is learn as you grow. So you're just gonna start doing it, see what happens, and you're gonna have to make adjustments, much like life. You know, the first time you got on that bike, you might have rode it for a foot, and you fell off. But guess what? Get back on and keep riding. Pretty soon you'll be able to ride with no hands, like I do sometimes. But same thing with aquaponics or just gardening in general. Sometimes you're gonna have some learning experiences. But that's the way you grow. So let's come on and check out these aquaponic systems. They basically have 4 systems here in this greenhouse, and it's just made out of some simple, like 2x12 lumber in between 4x4s, and they've lined it with a pond liner. And what it is, it's just down in this bottom murky water that you can't even see. There's only probably 700 fish in this one right here that we don't see. And there are tilapia in this tank here. The tilapia need to be around, like, I think 80 degrees or so year round. They don't like it colder. And what they do is that they'll be living down there, and they'll be pooping and creating fertilizer for the plants up here. And so the water is continually cycled up and fed up, and the plants actually pull the nutrients out of the water and actually clean the water for the fish, and then the water is returned down here. So you can see the pickup line over here. This is where the water is pumped up to the top. I can feel the water rushing through this pipe. It goes up to the top. It actually then runs down through the whole top here. and on the other side it drains down. So when the water drains down over here on this side, it's actually a little bit cleaner than it was going up from the other side. And what happens on the top is really interesting. Let's go ahead and give you guys a peek. So here's what's going on up top. You can see they got the distribution line here. This is the water from the tank. It's being sprayed through a PVC pipe that gets basically flooded on this table that works its way down to the other end. And the water just works its way down. Now as the water works its way down, there's all these plants. Some are in pots, which basically wick the moisture up into the pot and then into the plants, and then take out, and clean the water for the fish. So in this bed, what they have is, number one, they have this guy right here, and this is a really cool moringa tree here. And this is the same size as the one that was in the ground over there, and it's literally twice the size, and it's really looking real healthy here. Check it out, this is the moringa here, and this stuff's definitely a really good leafy green to eat. Besides that, they're growing also some watercress. And the watercress basically just grows in the water. Once again, watercress is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And the watercress literally grows in the water. So it does an amazing in this situation. The other thing they're growing here, you'll see over here, they have a lot of cherry tomatoes. So I'm sure they're growing cherry tomatoes because they yield a lot more tomatoes than a large tomato. Plus they actually ripen up a lot quicker. So those are the three things they're currently growing in here. And it looks like they're doing amazingly well. Here's the result of the aquaponics and the tomatoes. You can see that this thing is loaded up with tomatoes here. We're gonna go ahead and sample one so I can tell you guys how well this aquaponic system's growing. All right, and here's a aquaponic grown cherry tomato in Cleveland, Ohio. Wow, man, that's really tasty. I could definitely vouch. Aquaponics works excellent for cherry tomatoes. Besides the fruits and vegetables that you can grow on top of the aquaponic system, another real valuable asset you'll have, or actually food crop, is the fish. So let's go fishing. So we got this net here, and I'm gonna be really careful with these fish here because these fish are very delicate. What they do with these fish is actually sell to the local restaurants that pay like $10 per fish, because these are some nice, tender, locally raised fish. And I think definitely growing your own fish is really smart these days, especially with all the environmental toxins in the oceans and what's going on with that. So let's see if I could catch a fish. All right, check it out. I caught a fish. This guy looks like about a pounder here. This is a tilapia, fresh tilapia. We're gonna go ahead and put him back here. But yeah, the fish is a valuable resource. I think definitely if you're gonna eat fish, you should definitely grow yourself. Because also, if you're growing your fish, you could also grow your vegetables up top too. And the only input they're providing are two things. Number one, they got this vegetable-based fish food here. You can see here, they just have a little scoop here. And we'll go ahead and feed the fish for you guys to show you guys. Check out how crazy this will get here in the water. Look at this one. This water is so calm right here, right now. But watch this. Look at that. All the fish are jumping up to eat all the food. So one of the other things besides providing the fish food that they do buy, they grow their own duckweed, which is actually they're growing outside. And there's a funny story about that. So let's go ahead and head outside and show you guys how they're growing some duckweed. Now we're behind the greenhouse that we were just in, where you saw all the aquaponics happening. I mean, once again, that's a real simple setup. In a little bit, we'll actually show you a new installation they're doing so you could exactly see how it's done. It doesn't take rocket science, people, to put together an aquaponic system. But managing it, that's a little bit of another story. That can get a little bit challenging at some points if you don't know what you're doing. But anyways, besides the fish food that they're inputting this stuff right here, and I'm sitting at like a little pond here, and what they're growing here is the duckweed. So check it out, right in here, we just go through here, and man, this stuff is really thick. This is the duckweed here, and the fish will also eat the duckweed. And I mean, I'm sure you know ducks like to eat duckweed, but actually people could also eat duckweed if it was maybe more sterile than this. But anyways, the interesting story on why they're growing this is because actually they would drain out their tanks there from their aquaponics into this little area here. And one time they used to buy duckweed, $18 a bag to feed their fish duckweed. And some of it escaped into this, and then it actually started to colonize and actually started to grow itself. So instead of actually buying it now, they could easily grow their own duckweed to feed to their fish so that they can buy less fish food. So I think that's totally amazing. I wish it was a little bit more sterile, and actually I'd probably be eating some of this duckweed too, because definitely another leafy green you could eat yourself. Besides just growing the food here, you know, the whole philosophy here is like, you know, creating community and creating sustainability. And one way to do that is to use some of the resources that they have available on site or that are brought into the site. So one of the available resources, of course, the sun that shines every day, knock on wood. And how they're using the sun here is actually got some photovoltaic panels up top, and these are a new kind that I actually haven't seen before, that are literally flat, that just go on top of the roof, and they're producing probably about like 1,000 watts of power up there. So that's really good. And they got batteries to store the power so that if the power goes out, they can still run their pumps and some other necessary things here at the farm. Another thing they're doing is very important that you guys should also do. It's really easy. I mean, they basically got a rain gutter, and then they're catching all the rainwater into a 55-gallon drum. This is very easy to do. You could set a drum underneath, you know, your downspout and put a pipe going in there. And basically any time you could, you know, have a spout here on the bottom, you could turn this on and check it out. That's some good water pressure right there. You could use the rainwater to water your plants. Now the rainwater is probably the best water to water your plants because that's what nature uses. And one of my philosophies is that we want to duplicate nature, and that's why they make the compost. That's how nature works, to basically feed the plants to give them what they need, because nature doesn't work with Miracle-Gro. All right, so now we're gonna walk into this hoop house here. Now there's several of these guys. This is actually hoop house number 1. And it's about 15 feet tall, and actually it's fairly large, and check it out. We got some crickets in here, and it's nice and humid in here, and actually really warm too. And there's a lot of stuff growing. I mean, check out these okra plants. These okra plants are insane. They're like 6 feet tall. These are pumping out lots of okra here. And you can see, I mean, the size of these stalks. I mean, this is almost like a tree. So thick. I've never seen them so big, man. And this is just like one growing season they've gotten this big. Pretty soon they're going to actually be pulling all these guys out, even though they look quite healthy, because it's going to be getting cooler here in Cleveland, and they're currently working on transitioning you know, some of these beds with the summer crops to the winter crops, like one of the ones right here. Got some mustard greens growing right here, and they're going to transition over to some more winter crops. Actually, let's show you a couple of them right on the other side. Some of the crops that they're growing for the winter time are something like these little starts here, like some of the kales and the mustards and the collard greens, maybe some broccoli and cauliflower. In addition, in this bed over here, they got a whole bunch of lettuce already growing and doing pretty good. And you might be thinking, hey John, how are those things gonna grow in the wintertime when there's snow outside? Well, you know, certain crops will do better in the snow than others. For example, tomatoes aren't gonna make it in the snow. But actually some of the collard greens and kales and things in the cabbage family, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, actually are fairly frost tolerant, because, you know, they grew naturally in places that got really cold. They have what's called built-in antifreeze, you know, like why your car doesn't freeze up, the radiator doesn't freeze up in the wintertime. Those plants have built-in natural plant antifreezes that prevents them from freezing like, you know, a tomato would, because the tomatoes are naturally from the tropics. The lettuces, on the other hand, they're not quite as hardy as some of the kales, but, you know, what they're going to do in here to keep it warm, because there's literally going to be 3 feet of snow on the outside. Number one, because we are in a hoop house, it's you know, getting in the natural sun energy and actually warming up in here, and the heat staying inside because it's enclosed. The other thing they're going to do is actually right behind me right here. And what I'm sitting on right now, wow, this is actually quite warm, is a compost pile. And this is an active compost pile. If you have an active compost pile, the middle of the pile, whoa, this is really warm actually. I should have a thermometer. Man, the middle of the pile, man, this is not, oh my God, I'm freaking, ow, 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 ow. Like, the middle of this pile is burning my hand, literally. I mean, look, can you see the heat coming off that? Look at that. This is how hot the middle of the compost pile is, and this is what's going to heat up the hoop house here. They're going to have a few of these piles, and they're going to keep the temperature 60 degrees during the winter time, which is going to allow them to grow. And this is a free heat source by using the sun energy and using actually the compost that could burn your hand. Look, man, my hand's all red now. Look at that. This hand's red, this hand's not. because literally I burnt my hand with that compost for you guys to show you guys the power of the compost and how it can heat up your hoop house. So without even adding any fossil fuels or adding, you know, anything to a bill, because they're just making this. And actually the coolest thing, this is spent grains from brewery that would throw away the brewery waste that they're using now to heat their hoop house to grow food. And you guys could easily do this too, maybe not on such a large scale like this, but even just a smaller hoop house to just grow some of your leafy greens in the wintertime. Besides just growing inside the hoop houses, which they can roll up the edges so in the summertime it doesn't get too hot in there, they also were gardening outside, but because, you know, it's been getting colder here in Cleveland, they actually pulled all their summer crops out because pretty soon this place will be covered in some snow. Here's some basil that's still left over that's been growing, and what we're going to do next is actually go in a few more hoop houses and show you guys some of the different crops that are growing and actually how they're doing it. Next we're going to go into this hoop house, and I like that every hoop house has a door to go into, and it's painted on the outside. Whoa! And check it out, inside this one the sprinkler's on, and we're getting wet a little bit here. And this is really cool inside this greenhouse because it's actually quite moist. You can see they have 3 main rows. They're growing some leafy greens, transitioning over for the winter time. And it's just what they're trying to do in this one is actually simulate like South America climate, because it's, you know, they're watering in here. It's more humid, so they could grow different crops in a more humid environment than they would in a different, you know, non-humid environment. And they've been experimenting and keeping records of what does well under what situations. And that's a really good learning point for you guys, actually. I always encourage you guys to keep records or maybe make YouTube videos of what works and what doesn't, so that next year or the following year, you'll know what works. But also if you make YouTube videos, you could share with the world what worked for you in your specific environment under your specific conditions. Once again, what they're doing in this greenhouse is actually they're going to use the compost pile here to keep it really warm in the winter time. And you can see over here how well this worked in here. Check it out. They got still huge watermelons on the vine here that they're probably going to be harvesting really soon. For a minute, I want to talk more about this site. Actually, this site was a old barracks, and then actually it was just a junkyard. They were digging up cars, and people were dumping things here for years and years and years. So, you know, the soil in this area is pretty contaminated or toxic. So they're actually not growing in any soil here. What they've done, they put like a layer down of maybe some kind of sheeting to basically separate out the toxins down below. And they brought in these guys, wood chips. Now, wood chips are the best free remediator of soils because they'll break down and actually build your soils up, but also it'll basically put some space. You know, in some cases here, it's up to 3 feet of wood chips on the land here, you know, to make sure and ensure they're not growing in it. And what they are growing in is the compost, which we're going to take a look at in a couple minutes there. It's probably their #1 valuable asset here, and they make it on site. What we're going to do next is actually show you this new building they built. Basically, this is another hoop house with greenhouse panels on here. And whoa, man, you walk in here and you can instantly feel the heat. It's probably like 15, 20 degrees warmer inside than outside. This is just amazing. They just put all this brand new compost in. It's probably active. They have 2 piles in here, and they're getting ready to plant out for the new season. And one of the things I was told they're gonna do in here is actually, you can kind of see a sample there. They're gonna grow roses as actually, you know, a trial to see how well the roses are gonna grow under these particular situations for the cut flowers, but also just as an experiment. And I always encourage you guys out there to experiment when growing and have fun. Try new things and see what works well under certain conditions and what doesn't, because that way you'll truly learn and grow as a gardener. Next, we're gonna go into this new greenhouse here that they just built, and this is like they're modeling their first greenhouse with the aquaponics system. But this is where I'll get to show you guys actually how the system goes together, because they're actually not started yet. In this greenhouse, basically it's just all wood framed, and they got the dual insulated panels up top, and you can see it's just going in. Now, they have tilapia in the other one with their aquaponics, and this one they're gonna use perch. The perch need like 65 degrees instead of the 80 degrees, so you know it's a lot not as hot for the water, but they also may not reproduce and make as much fish. But this is how their system goes together. Basically, they got the wood here. It's framed out. Basically, they using some 4x4 posts down on some concrete blocks. They go all the way up to the top. They basically make like a level, a second story here with 2x4s and some plywood. And it's all basically done with the pond liner here to keep it waterproof. In the bottom here, you can see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. And you can see I'm just now inside this little 4x4 frame with the 2x4s and the sides. And literally, this is all it is. They just build out a box with 2x12s all the way up. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 2.5 feet, 3 feet tall. And they just put the pond liner in and they tack it on the outside so there's no holes. Sometimes they'll put padding on the inside here. They're going to fill this up with water and then get their fish. And I mean, that's how really simple it is. These materials are available at a local pool supply store and your local big box hardware store like a Home Depot or a Lowe's. Up top, it's pretty much similar. It's basically the same exact thing. They have basically I think it's about a 2x4 here on the top here, and then basically they just make like a little tray. And this is one big tray here with the pond liner to line it, and this is where they're going to run the water through and drain it back down into the bottom. And this is all the rafters here, just built like a standard house with the panels on top to make it nice and warm. This is how their standard aquaponics system goes, and one of the goals of the organization here is actually to not just do this for people and show them how to do it, but also to basically bring this and make some of these in a smaller form to bring it into people's homes and into churches so that people can grow their own food. Actually, there's a really cool aquaponics setup. Instead of building it all out of wood, you could use a standard tote, which we might see in a little bit, and just cut the tote in half and use one half for the bottom where to keep the fish. The other half, you basically flip it upside down and use that as your little growing area. So hopefully I'll have a video on that pretty soon for you guys as well. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you actually the last hoop house, and this thing is ginormous. It's actually like 20 feet tall and super big. And I'm not showing you guys all these hoop houses that like say, wow, check out what the Ridall Green Partnership is doing. I'm doing this because to show you guys what you can do at home, even if you don't have a lot of land. Put up a small hoop house, have a compost pile to heat it up, and grow some of your leafy greens in the wintertime. I mean, they're doing it here in Ohio. You could do it all across the country where there's snow in the wintertime. Doesn't matter. Anyways, let's come inside and see what's growing on in this hoop house. Whoa! I'm just blasted with a whole bunch of heat when I walked in here. Once again, they got the compost here going, which is keeping this warm, plus just the massive surface area of the sun to radiate in here to keep this warm. Even at this time, late in October, they're growing some fresh basil here. Nice large basil leaves. Got some flavorful stuff. And one thing that I heard is that, they're selling this stuff $5 an ounce. So I mean, to some of the chefs here that want good quality food, because this is really good quality stuff. And guess what? It all starts with the soil. So they're slowly transitioning out to things like the tomatoes here. It's gonna get too cold for these guys pretty soon. And what they're growing instead are something like this right here. Some of the mustard greens. So the mustard greens, definitely a really good winter crop to grow. It's nice and hardy. It could definitely take the cold and still keep growing. Some of the other things are growing also for the winter. There's all the lettuces, and they have some collard greens and more mustard greens growing on the back. Another thing I wanted to point out to you guys is actually right here. This is actually a very important resource to have inside your hoop house. And this is basically their water catchment water. So they caught the water off the rain gutters, they fill this up, and not only can they run their drip system off it, which is what they're doing right here. This is their drip system here, fed by the barrel, but it also actually acts as a thermal mass. So, 55 gallons of water is a lot of thermal mass. What happens is the sun hits inside the greenhouse, it heats up during the daytime, the water gets warm, and then actually at night, the heat is trapped in the water, it releases. So besides the water thermal mass, they're using another thermal mass. You could use, concrete blocks, things like that. But they're using what's in these garbage cans, and these are black garbage cans. So if you're trying to collect thermal mass, definitely better to collect black stuff. Looks like they have different things like coffee grounds here from a local coffee shop. And they're storing these because these are a, essential element in their composting that they do. But also these will also collect thermal mass and, stay warm and release the heat at night. Overall, the message of these hoop houses are that, this is the technology you need to use in the wintertime to grow some food, whether using tall hoop houses or maybe not so tall or just even smaller ones. By using them and using the compost to heat them up, you have a free source of energy or heat to heat up your hoop house so that you can grow during the winter time. One of the things I like what they're doing here is that they're making the most and best use of all the land here on site. I mean, you can see above me there's like some little hilly area, and this little hill actually goes up to the tracks for like the metro train that comes by every 20 minutes. But they're not just growing in the greenhouses and the hoop houses. They're making the best use of all the space here, and I encourage you guys to do that at home. If you got a slope, oh, we can't grow nothing on the slope. Bull honky, you could grow stuff everywhere. I mean, trees grow everywhere. Look at all these trees growing. So what they're doing is actually they're making an edible food forest permaculture garden, and this is the plan here. They have it laid out. You can see they got the hoop houses here, and they got a pond here that's gonna have fish and catch rainwater, and they got basically all different fruiting crops and edible vines and berry bushes like all over this place. One of the techniques they're using is making these little shelves. And so you can think of that as like, they got this slope here coming down, and it's actually pretty steep, so you can't really grow on it. But on the slope, they're gonna basically build it out with some wood and fill up underneath and make it a flat area like a terrace, and then fill that with the compost and start growing some plants in it. So in that way, they could actually start growing food in a usable fashion on this slope. In addition, of course, you can plant trees and berries and whatnot on the slope because they'll just take over wherever they grow. So what we're looking at now is this is like a 300-gallon tote here. This will hold 300 gallons of water. It's actually on its own little skid. And a lot of times you could find these on Craigslist maybe for $100 or something like that. And this is probably the ultimate way to collect your rainwater for fairly inexpensive. An investment of $100 will definitely pay you back over time by all the water you catch to water your garden instead of using the city water, which is chlorinated, which may actually affect the health of your plants. Next, I'm going to show you guys actually what they're doing behind me. You can see people at work, and actually, this is the first aspect of making their own rich compost here. What they're doing here is actually they're getting like the rotten food from local food banks and maybe grocery stores and whatnot, and actually they're turning this into the black gold or the compost that they're using to grow in. So in this way, they're not having to actually buy fertilizers and things like that. They're just using what they're getting for free. And you can see that today they got a whole bunch of lettuce that they're now putting out, piling out. They actually got a whole bunch of rotten strawberries that they're throwing out. And they're gonna turn this into the soil. And let me show you guys, I love the compost so much. We're gonna jump in. Oh man, kind of stinks, man. So yeah, this is what happens. I mean, this stuff breaks down. Hopefully you guys actually would eat your greens and things like lettuce before they go to compost, but don't feel guilty if you don't get to eat all your greens in your fridge. Just take them out to your garden, put them in your compost bin, and then they'll end up feeding you anyway. So that's definitely something to think about. Now we're at another aspect of the composting that they're doing here, and this is it right here. I mean, longtime viewers know that I definitely agree with the wood chips. This is a free local resource they are obtaining that just gets dumped here. And once again, they use the wood chips to turn in to their soil, and they just get it dumped for free. So call a local tree company, tree service. Oftentimes they actually have to pay, at the waste disposal site or the dumps to drop this stuff off, but you call them up and say, hey, dump your wood chips here on my land for free. And you should definitely have a large amount of land. And there's many ways you can use wood chips. One is just literally pile these guys up and let them rot for about 5 years, and you'll actually turn it in to some black gold. Be sure to check my past videos on how to supersize your vegetables with wood chips. But what they're doing here is actually they're taking the wood chips, mixing it with the food scraps and other leaf material, and they got composting times 20 on a massive scale. Check it out. This is composting on a massive scale. Normally people have like a 3-bin system. Well, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4-bin system, but these bins are like, I don't know, man, 20, 30 feet wide and like really tall. They literally just are piling up a lot of the different, inputs that they get, the coffee grinds, the spent brewer's waste, the wood chips and the food waste into these, and they're all at different stages. I think the ones over there are pretty much ready to go. And this is what they turn into the soil. And overall else, this is what the most important thing they have growing here is the soil. So if you live in the Cleveland area, actually, they will sell you the compost, and this is how valuable it is. They sell 1 cubic yard for 85 bucks. And let me tell you, this cubic yard is probably better than any of the mixes of compost you'd get at the Home Depot or anything like that. This is the stuff right here. But nonetheless, it is actually quite expensive. So I encourage you guys to make your own compost, and I want you guys to realize the value of the compost and why you should have been doing it last year. So I know it's fall in many places in the US right now. So collect your leaves off your trees, your neighbor's leaves, and pile them up and save them so you can mix those with your food scraps to make your own compost at home, because it is quite valuable. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tour here at the Rittal Corporation, what they're doing. And you know, I could sum up what they're doing in pretty much 2 words: education and sustainability. And that's what they're teaching here. They're wanting to educate people about this stuff, creating a sustainable world. And I can sum it up with the definition on their little brochure here. It's a urban agriculture definition. U stands for urban environment. R stands for retrofitting of farming operations in residential spaces. B stands for benevolence, giving back to the community. A stands for access to fresh food. N stands for network building. These are all excellent principles, in my opinion. Another thing the Rittal Corporation is doing is they're coming out with a series of these comic books that educate the children. As you guys may know, children, in my opinion, are one of the most important resources we have here in the country, if not the world. And we need to teach them how to basically become more green and be green. And you know, a facility like this does just that. This is actually called Rittal Presents Brink City Green in the Ghetto. So they have a whole program on Green in the Ghetto where they use, you know, comic books, and this is 5 out of 12, to teach kids in a format they can easily understand and enjoy about things like agriculture, about things like, you know, storm sewer water, about things like, you know, compost and worms and vermiculture. Definitely really cool. If you want to be able to get access to these comic books, be sure to check out the website rittalcorp.com. I guess the final thing I'd like to say is that if you're anywhere in the Cleveland, Ohio area, you want to get down here to check out the facilities and learn and even volunteer and help them out here, because I think the best experience you can get is by doing, whether it's at a facility like this or somewhere else. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep on growing.